Good day. I am Lance Albert De Leon, together with my fellow groupmate Abigail Malang, and we will present our case study on the decision analysis and solution design of Little Cup. Let us start with discussing the background of the study. Little Cup Corporation is a startup company that started last 2010. They distribute paper-made products like paper plates, paper cups, paper meal boxes, paper straws, and etc. Lately, the company is having difficulty with their demands and supplies. In 2018, they were not able to supply the 640,500 pieces of 520cc lids products for 9 months from January to October. This deviation was caused by the following reasons. 1. Subcontracting of Little Cup from other countries such as China due to their inability to manufacture their own products. 2. No forecasting method is done to roughly calculate the demand per month. And 3. Inaccurate data of their demands due to their outdated MS Excel database. Therefore, the company set three objectives that should be the outcome of their desired goals once their problems are solved. In order for Little Cup Corporation to solve their problems, possible solutions may be considered. For them to determine if they will continue outsourcing their products from China or produce their own, cost-benefit analysis can help them in choosing the best option with the highest net benefit but with a cheaper price. Next, since the company is not using any forecasting method, they should try the likes of straight line method, the moving average, simple linear regression, multiple linear regression, and etc., and measure each of their accuracy to decide which method best suits the company. Lastly, as stated in the study, Little Cup has two options for them to fix their inaccurate data. They can go with the least cost by developing an MS Excel database with the help of a programmer, or they can proceed with a more expensive solution by acquiring a software package for their database that will cost them 43,200 per month. To identify which solution should they choose, the company can do a multi-criteria analysis where it is a tool that evaluates multiple or conflicting criteria as part of the decision-making process. It has the same concept of the cost-benefit analysis, but with the notable advantage of not being solely limited to monetary units for its comparisons. The analysis of this case study will benefit Little Cup Corporation to work out their problems regarding the demand and supply that is caused by their inability to manufacture their own product, no forecasting method being used, and inaccurate data. At the end of the study, it must satisfy the three objectives set by the company, which are to lessen the admit demand by at least 80%, to be able to manufacture their own products, and to lessen the duration of days for them to satisfy the demand. Now let us now go on with the decision analysis. So here, we can see that the root causes were identified as to what I have said earlier, and the corresponding options of Little Cup regarding this matter. For the first root cause, which is Little Cup being dependent on their supplier, we have stated two options. It is either to continue their current operation system by getting their supplies from China, or to manufacture their own products so they do not have to depend on finding the best supplier that offers the cheapest price. Second is that they do not have or they do not use any forecasting technique. If a company does not use any forecasting, it will be difficult for them to set a quantifiable and sensible goal that is based on past and current data. Now here are the four commonly used forecasting techniques that Little Cup might try: the straight line method, the moving average, simple linear regression, and multiple linear regression. Lastly, the third root cause is the inaccurate data because the database is outdated. With this, They have the option to hire a skilled programmer that knows how to use MS Access or to buy the database software package.
For root cause 1, dependent on their supplier, the decision statement is to meet the additional demand of 520cc lids product. Next is objectives must the unmet additional demand of 540,500 pieces of 520cc lid products should be reduced by 80% and the demand should be met on time or when the customer wants it. Next is objectives or want. The method to meet the additional demand should be cost effective, as why would be choosing the alternative is better. It all comes down into its cost effectiveness. And next is the revenue of the company will increase, which is a plus in total. And the alternatives that we have for this root cause is that we buy the machine needed to have the ability to manufacture their own product or maintain their reliance on Chinese suppliers in the production of their product. With this, we have the consequences for the two alternatives. First is the alternative 1, which is buy machines. This will be additional cost for the company with additional workers are needed to maintain the machines, but they could meet the additional demand on time, which is a big plus for the company. Then for the second alternative, maintain relationship with the Chinese suppliers, which is the first consequence is the most obvious one. The 3-day lead time is needed for additional orders, which can lead to delay or backlogs in orders. Next is no additional expenses is needed due to how you will be only maintaining what you have right now and you won't need to implement anything else. And lastly, no need to hire workers for production as you will focus on delivery or packaging of the product itself to the customers. Next, we have root cause 2. No forecasting method is used. The decision statement for this is to produce an accurate forecast of future customer demand. The objectives must a forecasting method is included in the management of their data. As mentioned, there is no forecasting method used as of now. Next is minimize errors in the estimation of their monthly customer demand, as this could lead to increased inventory or a lack of stock when needed. And lastly, can be used in the evaluation of cycle of demand, which will help in their orders or in their production number and be the balance between what would be ordered and what is ordered. So objectives 1 can be easily understood by any employee in the company, as we want to familiarize the current or newly hired employees about the forecasting method so everyone is skilled in it or trained somehow. And second, can provide an adequate buffer for the company so the unmet demand could be met. This means that the forecasting method could provide a leeway for the company to meet the additional demand on time. The alternatives for this decision is hire an employee that is knowledgeable in the various forecasting methods so you have an accurate point of view on precision and accuracy of a forecasting method, or you could train the sales agent in the straight line method for forecasting, as the straight line method is a simple yet useful forecasting technique. Now, we have explained the other components. Let us go to the consequences of root cause 2. So for the first alternative, hire a knowledgeable employee. This is additional cost for the company as you will be hiring a new employee, but they can provide the proper forecasting tool that needs to be implemented in a situation. And lastly, the knowledgeable employee can provide a cost-effective solution as they will be looking what does work and what is the best choice for the company's situation. And for the second alternative, train existing employee in simple forecasting methods, which this is a consequence it has a consequence of holding a high risk in forecasting errors as it is only a simple and understandable forecasting method with a low accuracy. And second is with training, it is a more minimized cost compared to hiring a new employee. That is why a consequence of this is minimal additional cost in its implementation. Now lastly, we have root cause 3, inaccurate data on their MS Excel database. Decision statement for this is to minimize the errors of recorded data in the database due to how we want to have a reliable database that can be used for the estimation of demand, objectives, must, a forecasting method can be implemented with it as you want the forecasting technique to be chosen to work with your database. Next is it is a reliable and credible platform for storing data as Microsoft Excel has some advantages and disadvantages compared to other similar databases such as SAP or MS Access and other else. And lastly, it can help the company to manage their data with accuracy and precision, which as mentioned, we want to have a reliable database. Next is objectives want. The method is cost effective. As mentioned, we want that the choice would be best for the company and it does not it it guarantees them a solution without any additional cost or super high cost. And lastly, can be easily understood and managed by a large number of employees, especially those in the management level, because we want them to learn this and teach them to who is under them. And lastly, uh, no, not lastly, but next is alternatives, which is create an MS Access database with the help of a programmer that will be hired. And lastly, buy a database software package like it's Microsoft Office with a monthly subscription fee or yearly subscription fee or what works for you. So now, let us discuss the consequences of the two alternatives. The first is Alternative 1, create an MS Access database with the help of a programmer. First is it has minimal total cost for its implementation. Next is a programmer will be hired to create the program. Third is can store order information. Fourth is can create customizable tables, forms, and generate reports. Five is can sort and search data queries. Next is a worker can easily enter labels, descriptions, and data. And lastly, can be easily understood by any worker due to its similarity to other MS Office programs. Now, you have the second alternative, which is outsourced database software. First is it will cost the company 43,200 pesos per month for the subscription, as I previously mentioned. Next is no worker shall be hired for the creation or handling of it due to how this is an outsourced program or software. Third is it has built-in functionalities that allows users to do several actions that makes it unique and it makes it attractive to customers. And lastly, has the integration of mobile accessibility, meaning that it could be managed through a cell phone, especially if one is outside and needed to check the data. Now that we have discussed the decision components for each root cause, we can do a multi-criteria analysis and cost-benefit analysis to see how cost-effective are the alternatives for the company. First is we have root cause 1, dependent on their suppliers, that has two alternatives. So as you can see, this is the cost of alternative 1, which is buy new machine. It includes details such as the acquirement of the machine itself, where the machine would be stored, who would be handling the machine, and other related costs to place and maintain a machine. Now, the benefits of alternative 1, buy new machine, is that you will not have any amount per order as the production depends on you, and there is no shipment fee as it is can be local or it could just be near to where the customers are, and there is no 3-day lead time for production of additional demand as the choice is on you and there is no restricting you. And the two is tangible benefits as it has monetary value, and the last one is intangible. Now, the cost of alternative 2, which is maintain relationship with Chinese supplier, is actually the benefits of alternative 1, which is the amount per order and shipment fee, as it is a direct contact wherein if you buy machines, every saving from ordering from the Chinese suppliers is the benefit. Now we have the benefit of alternative to maintain relationship with Chinese suppliers. You could see that every benefit here is tangible as the benefit of alternative 2 is the cost of alternative 1 due to how if you maintain your relationship, you don't need to do a lot of things for you to meet the additional demand as it's all about your contract with the Chinese supplier. Now you could see the benefit cost ratio and the payback period. This is only computed but by benefits over total benefits over cost and vice versa. You can see that alternative 1 has a benefit cost ratio of 3.9596 compared to alternative 2, which has a ratio of only 0.2525. And the payback period, you have alternative 1 approximately 3 months only based on the decimal value, and alternative 2 approximately 3 years and 10 months. With these results, we would be choosing benefit uh, we would be choosing alternative 1 as it has the highest benefit cost ratio and shortest payback period. This is a truth due to how buying machines is a long-term investment but could be beneficiable in the end. Now, we have root cause 2, no forecasting method is used. Now, this is the criteria selection table which is given in the case study. As mentioned, it was created by the management to evaluate the alternatives for their decision. First is we have alternative 1, hire employee. Cost is only at a 3 because you are hiring a new employee with a good salary, and user friendliness is at a 3 because the forecasting method needs practice and skills. Data management is at a 5 because we consider that if you are knowledgeable in forecasting, you can sort, analyze, and see data in a different way. Next is we have alternative to train employee. The cost is at a 5 because training takes time and it takes money. Data management is at a 1 because the forecasting technique is very simple with a small chance of accurate forecast, but its user friendliness is at a 5 due to how it can be understood by anyone just by familiarizing themselves with its simple method. Now we have root cause tree inaccurate data on their MS Excel database. First is we have alternative 1, creating an MS Access database with a help of a hired programmer. Cost is at a 5 because you are creating a program with a newly hired employee. Data management is at a 3 because as a Microsoft application, it has its limitations. And user friendliness is at a 5 due to how it looks similar and feels similar to other Microsoft applications. Now, for alternative 2, acquiring a software program, cost is at a 5 with the given price tag for its monthly subscription. Data management is at a 5 due to its built-in functionalities or add-ons, and user friendliness as is at a 3 due to how it needs time to perfect how to use the program itself. Now that we analyze all alternatives of all root causes, we can see what should be used. For alternative 1, we know that we need to buy machines as a long-term investment will make you money in the end. And for alternative 2, with no forecasting method is used, it can be seen in these tables wherein historical forecasted is for training the employee, and with the MSB MAPE is the complicated version of forecasting which will be done by the hired employee. And you could see that MA moving average is a most lowest standard deviation among the three, so it's gonna be what to be followed by the company, and it will be done by a hired employee skilled in forecasting. Then lastly, for root cause tree, inaccurate data on their MS Excel database, we will be doing the MS Access database due to how simple modifications by the programmer can make it usable and excellent as a reliable database. Now, for
The
the
system solution design. As discussed earlier, Little Cup is having a problem with their demand and supply, which leads to 640,500 pieces of unmet demand of 520 CC leads from January 2018 to October 2018. Also, the causes of this problem is broken down into three, which is the subcontracting of Little Cup from other countries such as China due to their inability to manufacture their own products. 2. No forecasting method is done to roughly calculate the demand per month. And 3. Inaccurate data of their demands due to their outdated MS database. This must be solved in order for Little Cup to satisfy all their demands. To do so, I'll discuss on the next slides the following solutions to be done. Being dependent on the supplier can be a problem, especially for startup businesses, since their pricing will be based on the cost the supplier gives. Also, the price will not be the same as usual because it may fluctuate due to economic status reasons. Therefore, being able to produce one's product is essential for every business. This figure shows the step-by-step procedure that Little Cup should follow in order for them to manufacture their own products. After they have decided that they will produce their own, they need to find an area first where they will establish the plant factory and then buy all the machines, factory equipment, office equipments, furnitures, and etc. to complete the setup. Then, the company should get all the raw materials first before hiring personnel for the job. Once all the steps are followed, Little Cup can now be independent from their supplier in China as they can produce their own paper products. There are a few procedures that a company should do before doing any forecasting technique. In this figure, it shows that the first step to be considered is the type of forecasting to be used, since not all forecasting methods are applicable to every company or business. Once the specific method is identified, the next step is to update and always update all records of transactions in their database every time they receive an order. It is an important factor in forecasting that all the historical and present data are up to date for better forecast accuracy. Next, to avoid data confusion, it is important to summarize all the reports per week and or per month to give a short overview of the important numbers in the data. Lastly, is to apply the chosen forecasting technique to make informed business decisions on the future steps to be done by the company. In order to address Little Cup's inaccurate data, they must do the course of actions as shown in this figure. The process starts when there is a summarized information of the weekly and monthly inventory. This report will be used by the hired programmer to create the company's database. The programmer will be paid by the company for the service until or she is done with the job. Once he or she is done, Little Cup will have a new database with updated data. Okay, so this is an example of a systems flowchart. A systems flowchart is used to illustrate the flow of process in a system and the actions to be made to control events. In this figure, the process starts when a customer has made their order. The inventory and logistics department will receive the order, and the logistics secretary will record that transaction. Before the order to be processed, the availability of the stock must be considered first. If the company runs out of stock, it is the secretary's job to inform the person in charge of the factory and inform the customer that there is no available stock as of the moment. However, if there is, the product will then proceed with the quality checking to make sure that the product is brand new and has no any damage. If ever there is even a small damage, it will be sent back to the factory and labeled as reject. If there is none, the product will then be packed by the packer and loaded to the delivery vehicle for shipping. The process ends when the customer receives their product and signs the paper for confirmation. Basic elements of implementation plan. System implementation planning is the process of integrating solution ideas into the company's operation. It has four things to be considered when planning. These are planning the work, planning the tasks and subtasks, planning the time, and lastly, planning the people and resources. Planning the work to be done defines the actual work or interventions to be done in solving the problem. For planning the tasks and subtasks, it defines the work activities to be performed, including all task and subtask details. Next, planning the time specifies exactly when each activity and task is to be carried out and the complete project schedule. And lastly, planning the people and resources is important since it specifies clearly the roles and responsibilities of each individual or entity involved in the implementation and who performs which tasks. To complete the plans of action, these are the four elements of the implementation plan: the task and timeline, budget and resources, stakeholders, and potential problems. I will discuss how these elements served as a guide in making a plan. The task and timeline was used for problems 1 and 3 since it cannot be applied in selecting the forecasting method. The first figure shows the forecasted number of days before Little Cup fully establishes their plant facility to produce their own goods. For task 1, it is projected that the company will take a maximum of 7 days before they can find a factory that best suits their operations. Task 2 is labeled as the buying of machinery and equipment. It usually takes 4 to 5 days to deliver those items, especially when they are brought within the region. For task 3, or the buying of raw materials, the usual delivery period is 4 to 5 days when it is coming from China. Next, task 4 is the hiring of personnel. As you can see in the figure, this has the longest number of days to accomplish since the person in charge of recruiting still needs to assess which of the applicants are qualified for the job. After hiring, they need to go at least 1 week of training, which is task 5, before they can start to work. This is to give them knowledge on how the company operates and how to operate the machineries. Lastly, task 6 is the production. The company will manufacture their products for 1 week before they can sold to the public. Hence, task 6 will be repeated weekly. If ever an employee leaves the company, tasks 5 and 6 should be followed. Now, for the second figure, it is the task and timeline of creating an MS Access database. For task 1, the company needs to provide a summary of all the reports regarding all of the transactions within 3 days. The summary must include all the important data only and disregard the unnecessary ones. Next, task 2 is the recruitment of personnel. He or she must be a college graduate, can at least communicate well, and most importantly, skilled enough in MS Access so that he or she can do the job correctly. For task 3 and 4, they can be combined at the same time because it is the number of training days for the programmer and the logistics secretary, respectively. The secretary must also undergo training in order to know how to record the information of the order, since they do not have this in the current system. Lastly, the programmer needs to create Little Cup's database within 4 days, as well as the secretary to test on recording the data before it can be labeled as accomplished. Now, for the budget and resources, this is the budget. Budget is an estimate of all the costs of the company for a set period of time. It is important for Little Cup to do budgeting since it serves as a plan on how much the company will pay at the maximum cost on a specific matter. In this case, all of the given costs are on a per monthly basis, except for the salary of the programmer since he or she is a temporary employee and will be paid based on the service. Next, resource planning is maximizing the productivity of and efficiency of human and non-human resources. By allocating their schedules, it has a big impact for the company to manage their usage of resources, track the capacity of the resource, and to keep the project cost on budget. This table shows the working hours and break times of the 3 workers based on the given in the case study. Each of the workers will work on 3 different shifts, and it is stated that their break time should be in between the shift and it should only be at least 1.33 hours per day. Okay, so the next element of the implementation plan is the stakeholder. A stakeholder is a group of businessmen that interest a company and can make a huge impact on the business. There are 2 types of stakeholders, internal and external. Internal stakeholders are the ones that have an interest on the inside of the company, like employment, ownership, and investment, while external stakeholders, on the other hand, are those who are somehow affected by the results of the business but not, but not necessarily work with the company. This table shows the complete stakeholders and their participation in the company. So first is the employees. They have an important role in making strategies, plans, tactics, and operations which the organization follows. Thus, employees have a consequential finance and time investment in the organization. Next is the owners, or are the owners. They are the most important out of all the stakeholders since they are the ones in charge of decision making. If they are not satisfied with the performance of their people. In short, owners control the entire business. Lastly, for the external stakeholders, investors are also stakeholders, since they are the people that invest in a company which has a potential to return and double their invested money. For the internal stakeholders, on the other hand, we have two, the customers and the suppliers. Customers also play an important role for a company since they are affected by the quality of product or service they provide. They are an important stakeholders because they give profit to the company every time they buy and also give the company an idea on what improvements they should focus on to improve their satisfaction. Lastly, suppliers are also stakeholders since they have the highest interest of the results of the business because the raw materials or the product itself came from them. In short, they want the company to continue buying their product, their raw materials, and or products. Identifying potential problems or doing risk management is the last element of implementation plan, and it is a big help to plan a solution for a problem. It determines the likelihood of their occurrence, and it takes steps to avoid or deal with the likely problems in order to have a higher chance of success. This table is the summary of our risk management in the case study paper. Here are the two potentials on each plan to be implemented by Little Cup. So the first one is insufficient supplies. In our paper, the risk event trigger is if the demand for the product increases, the supplies might run out of stock and it will take days to restock. The potential impact if this risk event occurs is and supply demand will continue to increase. The likelihood is 3 and the severity is 5, which makes the risk score of 15. The prevent action by Little Cup is always check the number of supplies available every day. But the corrective action is to order supplies at least 2 times greater than the current demand in order to avoid shortage. For the machine downtime, the risk event trigger is there will be times where the machine will not function due to its continuous heavy usage. The potential impact if this risk occurs is the production of the products will be delayed. The likelihood is 4 and severity is also 4, and the risk score will be 16. To prevent, inspect machines daily every after shift. But the correct way is to buy a new machine instead of fixing it every time. For the third is the inaccurate forecast. The risk event trigger is the wrong forecasting technique or wrong inputs of data. The potential impact is not enough supplies with many demands or many supplies with few demands. So somehow it's contracting. The likelihood will be 3, but the severity is 5. So the risk score will be 15. To prevent this from happening, always double check when inputting the data. But the correct way is apply problem analysis to see where the error started. Next, the inaccurate data. This risk event trigger is the risk event trigger are the some activities have not been recorded or typo errors. The potential impact is the repetition of their current problem, which is their database is outdated. The likelihood is 3, but the severity is 5 since, as I said, it is the current problem. So the risk score will be 15. To prevent this from happening, always be meticulous in inputting data. But the correct way is apply problem analysis as well to see where the error started. For the unskilled recruit, the risk event trigger is the newly hired programmer is not skilled enough to create the database. The potential impact of this event can be inaccurate or no proper database of Little Cup. The likelihood is 3, the severity is 5, and the risk score is 15. To prevent this, always be more cautious in hiring a new employee. Always check their academic backgrounds and their experiences. The correct way is to find a more skilled programmer. Lastly, the program downtime. The risk event trigger is that there are instances where the program will have bugs and it will hang. This can impact the input of data will be delayed. So there is likelihood is 3 and the severity is 4, which has a total risk score of 12. Always check for program updates to prevent this event from happening. But the correct way is to go to a computer or a program repair shop to fix the software. So all of the problems in each category received a risk score of high because it's within the range of 10 to 19. Therefore, each problem has a prevention solution in case it occurs and a corrective action to avoid experiencing the same issue.
Now, for the conclusion, we know that Little Cup Corporation has been having a hard time to meeting the additional demand of the 520cc lids due to their dependence on their Chinese suppliers. Now, it has been discussed what alternatives to be chosen for the root cause, such as being dependent on their supplier, you buy machines. No forecasting method, you hire an employee skilled in different various forecasting techniques. And third is you hire a programmer to create an MS Access database to have a more reliable database with less inaccuracies. This only should be done with an implementation plan so that every issue can be answered step by step and it identifies what is needed, like what schedule, which people, and what other resources are required. And lastly, by doing this properly, you could, with the company, could achieve their objective of reducing the unmet demand by 80%, which means that the implementation of the strategic plan is a success.